I know it's been about 24 hours since the news broke, a little bit more than that, because I remember exactly where I was, because, well, this is honestly, like, this is, for, in my estimation, now that it's really finally sunk in, like, the passing of Ozzy Osbourne, right, it's probably the most significant death that I can think of since the Queen. Like, I don't want to overplay this too much or sound too hyperbolic, but honestly, like, if you're of a certain age, okay, if you grew up in the 80s or 90s, or hell, even if you were a proto metalhead back in the 70s, it's like Ozzy has been around forever, and you kind of took it for granted. You knew that, his earlier time, okay, especially, his years in Black Sabbath and his early solo career was a very much live fast, die young, hard drinking, and even harder substances on top of that. And you kind of thought that, hey, he got past that, and eventually he became the quintessential reality television star, and you just kind of thought he was going to be there forever. But then the news broke Tuesday afternoon that, yeah, it's 76 years old, 2.5 weeks after his final performance. Ozzy is no longer with us, and I just wanted to go through some of the reactions that we have seen in the past 24 hours or so, just to pay homage to somebody who, in all honesty, like, has to be on the Mount Rushmore for heavy metal. And like I said, if you're of a certain age, it's like there are very few pop culture icons that cast a bigger shadow than Ozzy. The foundations laid in the 70s with Sabbath, his solo career in the 80s, really driving metal home to the masses with No More Tears, which I think is probably his best solo work. Like, I do love me some Blizzard of Oz, and there are some bangers on Bark at the Moon and Diary of a Madman, but honestly, like, for a complete work, No More Tears, you're gonna get, or rather, it's gonna be difficult to find a more perfect album than that, especially dropping at that period in time. I'm not even a big fan of Zakk Wylde's guitar work, but on some of those tracks, it's absolutely perfect, even though I would kind of prefer more of a Jakey Lee, Randy Rhoads sound on Mr. Tinkertrain and Hellraiser, but now we're just splitting hairs. But yeah, hey, if you guys have been around long enough, you know that, whenever I have an opportunity to talk metal, I will go ahead and take it. And honestly, like, Ozzy's one of those, like, he's somebody who I would probably never put in, like, my top 5 favorite artists, but top 10 for sure. And now that, yeah, it was about the better part of the day that I've really been thinking about this and letting it ruminate, it's like, he's one of those guys, he's one of those musical figures that have just been around for as long as I can remember, for as long as I've been listening to music. It's just, Ozzy has been in the playlist, in the rotation. Like, I can look over to my media shelf where I've got a fairly extensive CD back catalog. I don't have any vinyls because I'm not a hipster like that. But yeah, like I said, it got Blizzard of Oz, No More Tears, Ozman Cometh, a couple of greatest hits fairs, and something that me and my friends back in middle school, we'd get together. One of my good friends, he had the entire basement. Actually, my 2 best friends, it's kind of funny how that ends up working out, but they both had the basements in their parents' places, and the soundtrack to whenever we'd all get together and play Halo was the Prince of Darkness box set. And when we wanted to switch it up for a little bit of extra fare, and we'd throw on Garage Inc. from Metallica, and you know what? One of the best covers is Sabracadabra. But Ozzy was just, he was so much more than just music, and that's not trying to diminish his impact on that, because, yeah, pioneering heavy metal and then breaking off and really fine-tuning and getting together a collection of some of the best musicians for his solo outings, how he continued to find great guitarist after great guitarist, musician after musician, after they would either leave the band or pass on. It's a testament to his talent, and also, got to give the devil her due. But for Sharon to be such a great manager of people, because all of Ozzy's abilities and talent, they would not have been able to have been realized if not for Sharon. And I know I've seen some people that are out there, and for overwhelmingly though, like, the response to this has just been overwhelmingly positive, which I do kind of appreciate. There's a couple of rage farmers that are out there, but they're not even worth bringing up at this point in time. We're talking about how Ozzy passes, on Saturday it'll be 3 weeks from the final performance, saying that, oh yeah, Ozzy, yeah, he was just, he was getting trotted out there for his final show because, Sharon would just never let him rest, and that was always stuff that was hanging over the top of it. But no, man, he loved being out there. He wanted to be out there. She got everything out of this guy, and he just wanted to perform. He wanted to put on a good show for the fans. It's very rare that you would hear that anybody would have a negative interaction with him, and it's unfortunate. I never got to see him play live. Had tickets for Sabbath's final tour. They were in Edmonton. It was a perfect setup, right? Because they were supposed to be playing on a Saturday, but unfortunately Ozzy canceled that date, and it ended up getting pushed back. And being in northern Alberta, if they reschedule, okay, because like the concert was, I think it was like in an August. It was August or September. It was late summer at some point in time. Yeah, on a Saturday. It was perfect. Okay, especially for people traveling several hundred kilometers in order to get there. Like, yeah, it was all set up perfectly. And then a couple of hours before showtime, oh yeah, Ozzy has a sinus infection. We're going to have to postpone the date. So it's like, oh God, well, okay, when's it getting postponed to? And then it ended up being like Wednesday in February. It was like, okay, cool. Well, I guess that's not going to happen. And then when he went on his second or third or fourth retirement tour for his solo band a few years back, he made a stop in Edmonton, but then again, I think it was on like a Thursday, and tickets were like $200 or $300 a piece. He had a special invite for Amex holders, or I guess the ticket venue or whatever it was like that. They extended the opportunity, but yeah, it's like I'll just go ahead and be thankful for the memories that the man has provided me and so many other people, because yeah, listening to the music growing up, watching the Osbournes as it was coming out, and then even still, like, I didn't even go through my full Ozzy catalog that I have. Like, I also have a couple of his latter day outputs, Black Rain and Scream. I think the Black Rain's a pretty decent album. Scream is fine, but even still, whenever you turn on the radio, okay, even later days after everybody, start to have different accessibility options for listening to different mediums in their vehicles, so the radio became very superfluous. If you so happened to catch a snippet of whatever was playing on the air, like if Ozzy had a new track that was out there, it was dominating the charts, and it was setting the tone, and it was head and shoulders above everything else that was coming out. So for a man to have 6 decades of pop culture relevance and staying right close to the tip top, we're never going to see anything like that again. Okay, not somebody who defined a generation with Sabbath, who set the standard for breakaway solo gigs after a huge success with a band. Because as much as I've said before, like Ozzy's incarnation of Sabbath is not my favorite, it's still probably their best stretch. Like those first 6 albums, okay, they're all tremendous. You're never going to see a band come out the gate quite like that in that short period of time with that high quality of output. And then when he kicked off his own solo band, like going from Blizzard of Oz, which is arguably his best work, and Bark at the Moon, Diary of a Madman, No Rest for the Wicked, and then No More Tears, it's like you'd be hard pressed to find anybody to have a career half that good. And especially in today's day and age, and for a multitude of reasons, like we're never going to get another Ozzy from simple output or from tonality. Because just as homogenous as all music is in today's day and age, nobody's going to take a risk on a blues singer like Ozzy. No record company is gonna sign up somebody like this. New voices and unique take on music, that kind of stopped in on and around grunge, when everybody started to sound the same, where every male lead had like that 2-octave range, and everything was bog standard verse chorus bridge solo radio rock retardation. So no, you're not going to get anybody who sounds like Ozzy. You're not going to get a superstar like that, a musical superstar like that can go ahead and launch like a decade-long music festival like Ozfest. You're never going to see that again. Not from anybody who's out there right now. So yeah, it's a monumental passing, and it's like, I guess, yeah, just hearing about the news earlier on Tuesday, it's like, at first I guess it was just shock, but now it's it's really starting to sink in, and god damn it, man, it sucks. It really does suck. But yeah, like I said a little bit earlier, like the outpouring of emotions is overwhelmingly positive, okay? Because my story is not unique. There's many people that are out there who have their own brushes and fandom with the Prince of Darkness, and it's very well deserved. But yes, Black Sabbath, yeah, lost our brother. Says that the band's co-founder Tony Iommi, yeah, bassist Geezer Butler remembered their final gig, and drummer Bill Ward shared a photo of them together. Yeah, that's because well, Ozzy and Bill had like the tightest connection, especially when Sabbath was cooking in the 70s. Like Geezer and Tommy, they would just kind of, they would be over there in their corner, and all of them would come together and work at the end of the day until, you know, it started to get really late in the tooth, especially with those last couple of albums when, you know, it was a little bit more contentious in the recording studio. Where Ozzy would come in, okay, if Tony and Geezer were out on the were out on the crawl, he'd go in there and turn up, you know, Bill's drums and his vocals, and then if Tommy and Geezer would come back to the studio, they would go ahead and, you know, drop the vocals a little bit and turn up the guitar and the bass, and you just don't get any of that stuff today. Queen's Brian May, yep. Elton John, Rod Stewart, Metallica, yeah, Stones, Ronnie Wood, all pay tribute. Aerosmith playing tribute, Jesus Christ, man. That's another one of them. Sammy Hagar, yeah, who was actually at that final performance, which I haven't actually, you know, brought myself to watch it quite yet, mostly because, well, paying attention to what Ozzy's been looking like in the background since his diagnosis, and it's like just seeing him up on stage. It's well, honestly, I have my memory of the guy in concert. I have a bunch of different concert videos, okay, because there's some bands that are out there that, yeah, I got really deep into collecting for a bunch of their stuff, and yeah, you know, Ozzy and Sabbath was one of those bands. So yeah, to just remember him on stage just dripping wet, jumping up and down, just singing his fucking heart out, and then to just see him like kind of just groveling the lyrics to Mama I'm Coming Home while sat on his cool looking throne, man. Like he was looking energetic, like he really wanted to be there. But yeah, I'm glad he got to perform one last time. It's just, it might take a little while for me to come around and watch that. But just this lineup, man, like Sabbath, Ozzy solo band, Metallica, Slayer, Pantera, Gojira, Alice in Chains, Hailstorm, Lamb of God, Anthrax, Mastodon, A.K. Downing, Duff McKagan, Slash, Wolfgang Van Halen, jeez. I think the last time that there was, a musical, a death that really hit this hard, it was probably Eddie Van Halen. That was a while ago at this point in time, but yeah, Sammy Hagar was at that show. He posted on Instagram that Osbourne, was and always will be one of a kind true rock legend. Well, yeah, of course. Metallica paying tribute, of course. Hero, icon, pioneer, inspiration, mentor, and most of all, friend are a few things that come to mind. AC/DC, yeah. And Henry Rollins, really summarizing it the same way that a lot of people have talked about Ozzy, but wild guy, but not wild and mean. Just at his peak, just unmatched levels of charisma and energy. Just, you've heard the stories time and time again. And whether it was performing on stage, on television, or hell, even in video games, which is one of the ways that I'm going to best remember him. I've talked about Brutal Legend and my appreciation for that. It's like the one time that Jack Black isn't annoying, and it's kind of like why I won't necessarily throw Triple H completely out in the cold, because he really helped out Lemmy at his time of intense need in the early 2000s. Jack Black did the same for like 3 metal icons: Ronnie James Dio, Lemmy, and Ozzy. Fun fact about Brutal Legend, you might have heard about this one before, but maybe not, okay? But Tim Curry ends up playing the big bad guy at the end. It's been a minute since I've played the game, so I forget the name of the big bad, but that was supposed to be Ronnie James Dio, but because of a certain meddling wife who has an axe to grind with that incarnation of a certain band that her certain husband was a part of, got him off the project. Even though Tim Curry absolutely nailed it, it just as much of a love letter to heavy metal as Brutal Legend is, really did miss out on that, because yeah, you have Rob Halford, you have Ozzy, you have Lemmy. It's a veritable who's who of that time in music, and I'm just really glad that we got them all together now that so many of them have passed on. And like a lot of people have said, you know, thankfully he got to be appreciated one last time at a big sold-out venue in his hometown. Kind of like an athlete winning a championship in their final game. It's a feel-good story, even if it is bittersweet right now. So rest in peace, Ozzy. And thank you so much for the memories.